How's it going, everyone? Welcome to the first ever video on my channel where I will be going over my Premier League predictions for the 2020-2021 season. In 20th place, I have gone with newly promoted West Brom. I have placed West Brom in 20th place because they didn't make enough additions to their squad. They obviously got Diangana permanently from West Ham, and they also brought in Mateus Pereira permanently. But other than that, they haven't really strengthened their squad too much. Their defense is still lacking, only 14 clean sheets last season in the championship. I don't think they're going to be great this year, so 20th place it is. Now, in 19th place, I am going with Fulham. Fulham, everyone's kind of putting them around 20th, 19th. I think it's the appropriate spot for them based on how their squad is. Mitrovic, he's a good forward. He'll get you 12 to 15 goals probably this season. Areola, who they got from PSG on loan, he's a solid goalkeeper. They brought in Kenny Tete, right back, solid defender. They brought in Knockaert from Brighton, who's okay. He's kind of championship quality, but can he play in the Premier League? Yes. They have Brian at left back, who scored the 2 goals against Brentford in the final. But then they also signed Anthony Robinson, which kind of a strange signing for them because they seem sound at left back, but 19th, I guess, because I don't think the squad is good enough to get any higher. Now we're on to 18th place. So, with 18th place, I am going with Aston Villa. Now, Aston Villa they could finish higher, they could finish lower, but with the signing of Ollie Watkins, I don't know, because yes, he scored a lot of goals in the championship, but that's not the Premier League. This is a whole nother level. So, is he a good player? Yes. Was he worth the $33 million they paid? Not. I don't think so right now. So, and then they also signed Matty Cash, who's solid defensively. We'll see how he does there, though. I'm not too sure about them. That's why I've put them in relegation right now. I think they're trying to sign Rashika from Werder Bremen, but as of now, they haven't got him yet, so I don't know. We'll see how they end up. In 17th, and just avoiding relegation, I have a team that's had a very frustrating window actually so far. I've placed West Ham here. They've been after Eze, they've been after the likes of Ollie Watkins, they've been after a bunch of solid players from the championship, but they just haven't had anything go for them. Everyone's wanting their owners out. Everyone's wanting players in. Just nothing's going right for them right now. Could they get relegated? Easily right now. But 17th right now seems like the right spot. Diangana, everyone I've seen on Twitter just unhappy he's leaving. So 17th or relegation. I can't see them getting any higher than this. It's just going to be a tough year for them. In 16th place, I've decided to put Brighton here. Now, Brighton has brought in actually some really solid transfers. They brought in Adam Lallana, they brought in Joel Veltman, but other than that, I don't see their squad being that great. Obviously, they got Ben White back from Leeds, seems like a very solid center back for the Premier League after what he did with Leeds last season. But other than that, Neil Maupay, he's an okay striker, maybe around 10 goals this year, but 16th place, they could obviously finish up to like 12th. They could get relegated. These teams are always really hard to predict just because they can place anywhere in this sort. But 16th it is. For this next spot, I'm putting a team who I think will have a sophomore slump or a second season syndrome sort of situation. I've decided to put Sheffield United here. Now, I know a lot of people think they're going to have a pretty good season like they did last year, but I think they might struggle a little bit without Dean Henderson between the sticks. They've brought in Aaron Ramsdale, who's a solid he seems like a solid goalkeeper, but I don't think he's going to do what Dean Henderson did last season, as he seems like he's going to be he seems like he's going to be a really good goalkeeper in the future. But overall, I think 15th could actually be the perfect spot for them this year. For 14th place, we're going with Leeds United. Now, this is their first year back in the Premier League in a long time. It's been a long-awaited journey for them. They have one of the greatest managers right now in Bielsa. He seems like he could bring them to, honestly, top 10. But because they are a new side, I am putting them in 14th place. But they have some quality players in their midfield. They brought in Rodrigo, and he could score a couple goals this year. He could struggle. I don't know, because the last couple seasons he hasn't really been scoring more than 10 goals as a striker. But we'll see how he does this year with Leeds. In 13th place, I am putting Burnley here. Now, they had a really solid end to the season. Sean Dyche looks like he did a solid job with them last year, ending on around 50 points. But this season, I think they'll struggle a little more. They haven't brought anyone in, but they still have Nick Pope there. He's maintained his spot in the team. They haven't sold him. So I think they could finish 13th. They could honestly finish top 10, but I think 13th is the right spot for them. Now, in 12th place, I've decided to put Crystal Palace. They've had a really solid window for them so far. They brought in Abere Eze. They brought in Michi Batshuayi on loan with option to buy. They brought in Nathan Ferguson, who's a pretty good right back. So with those additions, that kind of solves the issues with them going forward. If Zaha stays, they could honestly finish top 10 just because how prolific he is as a forward. Last year, he struggled a little bit, but if you watch him, he's getting double teamed, even triple teamed, just because he's the player that most teams emphasize when going after him. So I think 12th is an appropriate spot for them just because they do have injuries in the back, but they did have a pretty solid defense last year, apart from that terrible run of games. But if they can find their form, they could finish pretty high, actually. But 12th, I feel like, is an appropriate spot for them. In 11th place, I am putting Newcastle United here. Now, Newcastle United have had a really solid transfer window after their takeover just didn't happen. But luckily, they were able to get Ryan Fraser on a free, who seems like he could be a good fit there. They got his Bournemouth buddy. They brought in Callum Wilson, who he seems like he could be a solid fit there. 10 to 12 goals this season could definitely happen for him. And they also brought in Jamal Lewis from Norwich, who Liverpool is trying to buy him. So if Liverpool is going after him, he must be a solid player then. So yeah, 11th place seems like a solid spot for them. Steve Bruce just needs to make sure the squad starts strong first half of the season. And I think they'll have a good year. Obviously, the fans would like to finish higher, but I think 11th is appropriate. 10th place, I have put Southampton here. Now, Southampton, they could honestly, with their end of the season, they could finish higher than this. They could finish lower than this if they don't start off strong like they did last year. But if Danny Ings can continue his form, and Che Adams, if he does what he did the end of last season, I think they'll be a solid 10th place. But other than that, if their defense falls apart, they could honestly go down to like 16th place. But I think they're solid enough to stay in 10th place, which is top half the table. Going to 9th place, I have now put Leicester City. Leicester City had kind of a shaky end to the season after the restart, but they ended up finishing 5th place. So they have Europa League to look forward to. So with that, what signings have they brought in? They brought in a new left back because they lost Chilwell, but they got a lot of money out of him. But I think Castagne from Atalanta, he could be solid there. But Jamie Vardy is aging. I don't think he'll have the same season as last year. They still have James Maddison in the team. I think they could finish higher, but I think with the worry of playing European, like they did the year after they won their title, I think 9th place is appropriate. Going to 8th place, I have put Everton here. Everton have had such a solid window so far, bringing in James Rodriguez, they brought in Allen, they brought Doucouré. All those players are really solid. But will they gel together? That's the issue. That's why I put them 8th and not higher. Obviously, they still have Calvert-Lewin, and they still have Richarlison, who could get a lot of goals this year with the balls that are being fed into them. But we'll have to see how the squad gels together. I think they could finish top 6, which is what their ambitions should be, especially with Ancelotti at manager. But I feel like 8th place is just the right spot for them just because they don't know how to play together yet. So we'll see how it goes for them. Now, I've only got one team left that could fit the 7th spot, and that's Wolves. I think Wolves have had a very interesting transfer window, bringing in Fabio Silva for quite a lot of money for someone who hasn't really produced that much. But he is a youth prospect, so we have to look into that a little more. But they have lost Doherty to Spurs, who honestly, that's a big loss for them because him going forward, he looked really good going forward. So them losing him, but I still think Raul Jimenez staying there will help a lot because he's a really good striker. So I think 7th place is the right spot for them. Other than that, I think Everton could jump over them, but 7th place I think is good for them. All right, we're now into the top 6 teams. In 6th place, I've decided to put Spurs. They brought in a couple good transfers like Doherty and Højbjerg from Southampton, but I feel like it's not enough quality to boost them into what the top 5 teams are. But with Jose, anything's possible, obviously with the Amazon documentary going on. But I feel like 6th place is a good spot for them. Now going into the top 5, I now have Arsenal. Arsenal have had a pretty solid window so far, bringing in Gabriel from Lille. They had brought in Willian for a free from Chelsea. I don't know how much he's going to play, but I feel like he's going to be pretty solid there. I don't know if he's going to replace Bukayo Saka, but Bukayo Saka looks really solid. I don't think you can get him out of that squad right now. And then they also have Saliba returning to them from loan. I think he's going to play a lot. Kieran Tierney at left back, I think he's one of the best defenders or going forward defenders in the league. So I think he's going to have a really solid year this year. With Mikel Arteta and them winning 2 trophies already, Aubameyang stayed. I think they could finish top 3. But I think the other teams have more quality in their squads. This is why I've put them 5th instead of going even higher with them. Into 4th place, I have put Manchester United. Now, Manchester United, they've had a good window for the one player they bought, which is Donny van de Beek, and they brought back Dean Henderson. But I don't think their defense is sorted enough for them to get into any higher than 4th. Wan-Bissaka is a quality defender, and I think his only struggle is going forward. Harry Maguire being back helps, but I don't think he's the greatest defender. So I think they still need more help in defense. Their midfield is very attacking with Bruno, with the likes of Van de Beek coming in, and Pogba. I think they need more help defensively if they're going to run that lineup. If they bring in Sancho, though, they could finish top 2, I feel like. But right now, 4th place just seems right for them. I can't see them getting much higher than that with their defense just being what it is. We're now into the top 3 teams of the season. I've gone with sort of a surprise at 3rd place, and I've decided to put Liverpool. Now, I know what you're saying. You're crazy. How could you not put Liverpool to win the league or at least 2nd after what they did last season with being ahead of Man City by 18 points? But the end of the season was kind of telling for them. They were using most of their starting lineup, and they just didn't look great. They lost to Man City, I think it was 5-1 with using their starting lineup. Obviously, you could just use the excuse, oh, they didn't care. They already won the league already. But look at the lineup they used. They used their whole starting lineup they have used the whole season. I think Atletico Madrid really did something to them from Champions League. So I feel like 3rd place is the right spot. As long as there's no injuries, they might finish higher. But there's always a chance of injuries. Just transfer window's been very lackluster. They can't afford anyone apparently. Thiago's only 25 million, who's a really class player, but they can't afford him. They couldn't decide on bringing in Timo Werner. They couldn't get Jamal Lewis. They've just had a kind of a bad transfer window with potentially Wijnaldum still leaving to Barcelona because Barcelona really want him. But I feel like 3rd is an appropriate spot for them just simply because they've just kind of had a lackluster transfer window and squad's the same, which isn't always a bad thing, but injuries could hit at any point. Into the final 2 teams, 2nd place, I've gone with Chelsea. Chelsea have had a crazy transfer window. It might be the best transfer window ever. They brought in Kai Havertz. They brought in Ziyech, they brought in Timo Werner, and it's been crazy just seeing how they can have all these players, not to mention Thiago Silva, Chilwell, just they've improved everywhere besides one position, and that's their worst player that might be even in the Premier League. That's Kepa. Kepa might be the one player holding them back the whole season. So I feel like if they don't improve their goalkeeper, they're going to maybe finish even worse. But second, just with their attack, with what Pulisic was able to do last year, it seems destined that they're going to get top 3. But second just seems like the right spot for them just because of how good their offense will be this year. And yeah, can't say anything else bad about them. They're just solid all around besides goalkeeper. Now there's only one team left, and that would mean that Manchester City is my team that I'm having to win the 2020-2021 Premier League season. Now, they've brought in a couple good transfers. They brought in Ferran Torres, who looks like a wonder kid from La Liga. He looks like he's going to be solid, rotating in with Sterling and Bernardo Silva and Mahrez at those winger positions. And they've also brought in Nathan Ake from Bournemouth, who looks like he was their best player last year. So them bringing him in, as long as their team stays healthy, I think Aguero's still injured. But De Bruyne was so good last year. He got me a lot of points in fantasy. So just overall, I don't know who's going to beat them. Obviously, they struggled against all the top teams last year. I think winning and losing against each of them. But I feel like their team is just going to be really good this year. I think they're going to be motivated to win after what was kind of a struggle last season with the ups and downs, especially with losing to Lyon in the Champions League. But maybe it's because they didn't want to play Bayern, because I don't think anyone does right now. But I have Man City to be the champions of the Premier League for the 2020